Welcome to another episode of the Kernel Journal. I'm George and this is Whitney. We're in the field today. It's August 1st. It's 33 degrees and it is super warm, which has been good. We've received quite a bit of moisture here in the last 2 weeks. Just to bring everybody up to date, we're just shy of 12 inches of rain since this crop was planted, and we're very excited about how it looks.
We were kind of curious how this crop was going to perform against others that were seeded later in the season, being that we did have it in the ground so early and it was maybe some cooler soil temperatures when we planted. But I feel like this whole season it's been out of the gate really good and ahead, and we noticed that at tasseling as well. Like I said, with the exception of a couple of the grazing varieties, it's been tasseling for 10 or 12 days now, and majority of the other fields in the area started about a week ago on the early end, and there's a lot still to tassel now. So we're standing in the crop. As you can see, it's tasseling. Majority of these varieties started tasseling on July 18th. We've been keeping notes every day or every second day in regards to when each variety tassels, but for the most part our entire plot is completed tasseling, other than I believe it's 2 grazing varieties. We still are waiting for them to fully, or their tassels to fully emerge. A question that we've been getting asked a little bit over this last week is how many days roughly from when the tassels start to show can we expect to be silaging. So a rule of thumb that I say as a very rough rule of thumb is 45 days from pollination to when we can expect to be doing silage maturity, and around 60 days for grain harvests. So that is more an Ontario rule of thumb. As everybody here knows, we tend to get a lot cooler nights and our weather's a little bit more unstable than they maybe see out there sometimes. So if we're saying 45 days for silage for them, I would estimate about 60 days here as a rough figuring. If we keep getting the weather we're getting right now, with the nights staying really warm and then getting up to 33 degrees during the day, that's going to help us progress really quickly. But if we get our night temperatures starting to taper off to that 5 or 6 or 7 degrees, it's going to slow things down a lot.
One question we get asked a lot this time of year is how does the potential heat and stressful weather affect pollination?
So ideal temperatures for pollination on corn is around that mid 20s. As George said earlier, it's 33 degrees today, but we've had quite a bit of moisture in the last couple of weeks. So I think this is honestly about as optimum of weather as we can get. Some risks with high heat and hot, dry conditions with silking is the silks will pinch off. So although it may start to get pollinated, it won't actually finish pollination. And if we get severe drought later on in the season, we'll start to see kernels aborting. So those are the 2 main factors and reasons we don't want high prolonged heat. But looking at our forecast, it looks like it cools down over the weekend and we're getting some more rain. So yeah, I honestly feel like we couldn't ask for better conditions for tasseling and pollination right now.
Couple things to watch for as your crop is developing cob and is in a reproductive state. There's a couple things to look for as far as development. So each one of these silts is essentially attached to where the kernel is going to form here. So the pollen is going to fall from your tassel and fall into your silts. So if you pull your cob apart throughout the season and you can see the silts are attached here. So as if you, when you're pulling it apart, I'm being a little rough here, but as your silts are still attached to the cob here, that's an indication that that portion or that kernel of the cob has not pollinated yet. So that's something to watch for. So you can see there's been a bit of pollination here. Um, Definitely a farmer analogy, but the tassel is the bull end of the plant and the cob is the cow end of the plant, I guess you can say. So the tassel is pollinating the cob. This is a result of that reproductive process. For several years, we've seen different challenges during pollination. One thing that we've definitely noticed is heat stress, drought, and then also smoke has been an issue. So as this cob develops, you start getting formation, you'll see some dead spots in there. And that's essentially kernels that didn't have the ability to pollinate due to stress factors within this plant. Looking at the plot this time of year, we're continue evaluating the varieties, the different management practices we have in place. So we do have silting occurring within the majority of the varieties within the plot here. Something that I'm very excited about on some of these lower heat unit silage varieties is the level of cob development. Traditionally, what we see is tasseling starting kind of that last week of July, beginning of August, pending weather and environment. And I would say this crop is definitely off to the races. We've seen tasseling start the second of last week in July. There's been some really good development, and I'm very optimistic with the weather that we have coming in the forecast as far as some moisture. So, looking at the plants, we're not seeing any striping, we're not seeing any disease in these plants or any deficiencies. So, the foundation of this plant looks really good for starch development and gaining yields throughout the month of August. We're excited to announce our annual crop meeting that we're holding on August 28th. That's a Thursday. We're going to have Sean Winters come out from Mazex. He is responsible for their genetics program and developing these varieties here. We're going to be going through a lot of different topics regarding management. We're going to talk about the history of the crop here and the different varieties we have, but something we'd be very excited to have you folks attend. Please RSVP by responding to our Facebook profile or calling the office or our agronomy team.